Today I'm joined by my friend Joe Ingenito, who made Curse of the Chupacabra. And how are you, my friend?
Great. Thanks for having me, Chris. Really appreciate it.
No worries at all. You were the first, one among the first people I reached out to when I, even more of a nobody as I am today. And you were so gracious to let me look at your baby before it was, born. And so, yeah, I want to know firstly about you and your history.
Oh, well, there's a lot of history, a lot of gray in the beard. Let's see. I started playing D&D in 1980, 81. Long time ago. I was playing with my best friend's older brothers who were, fifth, sixth graders when I was in kindergarten. So I've been pretty much playing the game my whole life. It's done a lot for me. Like a lot of people will say, you grow up playing the game, it helps you social skills, team building skills, mathematics, and it's done me a lot of good. I spent 20 years in IT security where I'm still at, and I'm lucky enough to have done quite a bit in my career that allows me to try to do something I've always wanted to do. I thought to myself a couple years back, if I were to get out of IT, what would it take me to get out of here? And the only thing I could think of that would draw me away would be doing, D&D stuff. So started off with my little Chupacabra project. It became a massive Chupacabra project, and now it's a fully official licensed LLC here in Florida as a publishing company. So we got a lot of irons in the fire. And yeah, I'm besides that, I'm a father of identical twin boys. My first two kids at 42. So life's a bit crazy. So hence why Chupacabra is taking a long time. Whenever we hit a little roadblock, it's a little more difficult to get back on track when you got a full plate. Yeah. So, but we're getting there. And right now, the creative team on the project is 7 people strong. So it's become a lot more than what I hoped it to be, and it's a lot different than what you saw in the initial pass. That was something I tried to get out because I kind of sensed the OGL drama in the works. So something's up here. So let me publish this under the OGL, and I did. And even though it wasn't that great, I can always go back and modify it. But that's all moot at this point. So we're there. Here we are. So yeah, that's me.
Wonderful. Before we go any further, I can't help but I want a tour of what's behind you.
Oh, okay. Tour. Well,
anything cool.
Adam West, the Juggernaut, D&D books, Godzilla, Transformers. This is some cool new Transformers right here. G.I. Joe Transformer Hybrid. Bumblebee turns into the Awe Striker. Megatron turns into the Hiss Tank. Very cool. I got RC for... My kids bought me RC for Christmas. I don't know why, but I got some other guys over here. Transformers, G.I. Joes, Palpatine, Godzilla again, Robotech. Got a sword and a hammer. And then over here I got my, this is the late, great Anna Maria Luisa Italiano, also known as Anne Bancroft, who was my cousin. And those are my kids.
That's
I
brilliant.
keep her around for inspiration. Yeah, she was quite the woman. When you'd walk into the room, she would be like a total example of what a 20 charisma is like. She was something else. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, that's the tour. Yeah. Oh, and we got Gandalf over here and Mike Tyson over here. So just to round things out.
So what inspired you to create Chupa?
Well, I really wanted to do something to kind of like honorize or show respect for a lot of the people I grew up playing with. And I've played with so many people over the years, but I have like a group of friends. They're like all brothers to me, and we all play D&D together. They're all Puerto Rican. So heard a lot of Chupacabra stories growing up, and their grandma, Mama, was always telling us stories and feeding us, and it was good stuff. So I got to thinking, I'd like to do something that was a little bit more, cryptid, a little more sci-fi, and I just realized that there really isn't anything out there in the D&D sphere, at least in the contemporary sense, that's based upon any kind of Latin or South American culture. So that was my initial inspiration. It still remains the main inspiration, especially now considering how my company is very, very heavily Latino now. We brought on quite a few. The artist on Chupacabra, Mikey Rango, he's in Bolivia. He's originally Colombian. The new 3D artist we have, Matthias, he's out of Brazil. His wife will be drawing on our next project too. So a bunch of people out of South America. Our new map guy, Steve Thompson, the laid back DM. He's been out there for a while, very successful with his Kickstarters. He'll be our map guy going forward. He's a good guy, and I like what he does. So he works with us well. So yeah, that's it.
The art's got such a color to it. It's just It's so vibrant. Yeah, really like the style.
Thank you.
So have you noticed, I don't know if it's got on US Netflix, but there's actually a Chuppa cartoon, like a
Yep.
knockoff
Well,
Pixar. Did you do that?
No, I didn't do that, but it's just a kind of funny name to me. Like, if you speak Spanish and it's called Chupa, the show is just called Sucker. So, and the Chupacabra in that looks like a griffin. He looks pretty cool, but I can guarantee you that the Chupacabras in that show and the ones in our adventure are very, very different. That one seems almost like a benign, misunderstood cryptid, whereas ours are literally out to liquefy your insides and feed upon you. So.
Yeah. So is that the main difference, do you think? Is it the horror theme that sets it apart, or anything else in the bit I've not seen?
There's a lot that you haven't seen. I basically kept the whole second half under wraps. I've alluded to what's coming, but I really trying to keep my mouth shut until it gets out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sci-fi, and I mean that in a literal sci-fi sense. I know a lot of people think, when you look at like Star Wars, it's science fiction. It's really not. It's fantasy, right? There's nothing sciencey about it. But a lot of what's in Chupacabra is historical science. We actually get into a lot of modern things that are kind of like Isla Zardia is like this place that's kind of like a nexus between dimensions. Think of it like in the Bermuda Triangle where all these weird things disappear and they all happen. Well, they all wind up back in Isla Zardia, which is this nexus point. So that's kind of giving you a little bit about what you're going to find in the Chupacabra. They're like these otherworldly entities that visit this place from time to time. And the party kind of steps off the boat into this town that's been there for, about 100 years. The people there are very friendly and it's a cool place, but they don't really know everything that's up with the island. So it's, there's a lot to be discovered. D&D style, your first couple of quests are in the town around there. I've changed that a little bit since, you guys have play tested it. I needed something a little bit more seamless to get the party going. So that's been tweaked. But it starts off level 1, level 2, right around the town. And then you have a whole open island to explore and lots of stuff there to get into. I mean, besides the Chupacabra, we've put in a bunch of other Latin creatures. The Pishtaco, I know the name is a little funny, but really, really creepy legend about white people stealing fat right out of your body. So I kind of modified that so it's a little bit, creepier and, a little more contemporary, because Mikey was telling me stories of this Incan temple or place that he visits in Bolivia. So kind of just rolled it with some of the stories, the local legends he told me into, a little subplot. So there's all kinds of little things you can find hidden out there in the jungle that aren't necessarily related to the main plot, but you could spend some time out there leveling up and finding stuff. And, it's like an open world after level 2. So.
Yeah, we found that it was very much like oh God, where do we need to go? Which is really good. And then of course there's mines, plenty of different farm locations, and tropical setting. People should know that if they don't know that. So how did you approach the NPC character design? Is there a system? I wouldn't know where to start.
Well, see, I didn't have systems for anything getting into this. I mean, I'm an IT guy. So I'm very fluent with like project management and things like that, but I've never really been a publisher or never really made anything formal besides something I ran for my friends. So is there a process now? Yes. Was there before? No. I kind of, I made up some NPCs for this module, most notably, John LaCasio, one of the writers, and I came up with Don Gablione a little while back, and that's one I've kind of fleshed out over time. But I'm really good at creating certain type of characters, but why I brought in other people is because I realized that my characters are all very tropic, and I needed different viewpoints, a little diversity of view, if you will, in order to really flesh out characters. And that's where Nedka Rakonikova comes in. I had met her online playing some D&D, and she had this very cool way of creating characters, and she's of Eastern European and Santee Dakota descent. So she has this crazy Eastern European. She knows all about tarot and everything, and then she knows all about Indian mythos, Native American mythos. So she creates really cool characters, and my wife invented Amaya, just the concept of it and the art, but it was Nedka who took Amaya and a couple other female characters that are in the book, Prospera, Dubella, and kind of came up with a backstory for them. So there's a whole like kind of side story that involves the three sisters and how they came to the island and everything. And that will actually be a novel after the book is done, how they got to the island and Nedga's writing. So.
That answers another question. I was going to say, have you considered video game, sequel, comic books? But yeah, books is on the chart, is it?
Yeah, there's a lot coming up, actually. If you don't mind me getting into that a little bit, we got so D&D adventure books. Obviously, we're going to stick with, after the OGL drama came out, we're going to stick with our 5th edition / OSC format that I hope people like. I've seen other people doing it, and I think it's great because I'm old school. I love playing OSC, and I know other people do. I also love playing 5th edition. I mean, they're both great in their own way. Depends upon the crowd. And I wanted to be able to put that out there. So here's the adventure. OSC gives you a lot more like creative ability. It's a little bit more loose with the rules. A lot of people in 5e have raw. They want the rules as written and things. So I try to keep that more precise. Whereas 5e, we're with OSC, we can be a little bit more liberal with, how to interpret things. So there is, everything lines up, as far as like the game mechanics go. But we're going to stick with that as our main bread and butter. But we also have, going along with this, the maps and the minis that we started doing. So our first round of minis that we got done, I paid for them from a designer I met online. They came out looking pretty good, but when we started trying to print them, the scale, they were like this big. So we had to blow them up and try to print them, and it didn't work, and the guy wasn't being very responsive. So that's when I met Matthias, brought him in, and his designs are amazing. They're much better, and he's easy to work with. So he's officially part of the team now, and we've redesigned the whole minis for Chupacabra. I've put some pictures out of some of them, but there'll be 8 in the pack. So we have, the minis that we're doing. We have our own printing capability for that. The maps, I have a big old 44-inch printer over here that I bought. It needs a couple new print heads, but once that's settled, then I'll be able to start printing out the maps. So we'll be doing maps, posters, minis, books, and finally, the 2 other things, like I mentioned before, novels. As part of working on the Curse of the Chupacabra project, I promised the writers, you help me finish my project and I will back you for yours. So I will be, I do all the work as far as building the book, putting it into InDesign and doing all that. So I'll do that for them, whatever project they want to do. Nedka wants to do a novel. So I got her back on doing that. And John wants to do more adventures. So we'll keep doing that. But the other thing that I'm very excited about is we're going to do a comic, and Mikey is going to draw the comic book. So I'm going to focus him on the comic after Chupacabra is done, and the script is already being written for that. And my good friend John Coleman, who was like my DM from back up in New York back in the day, he's going to be writing that, and he's pretty much like read every comic under the sun. He used to write for Wizard magazine back in the day, but like most of us, got caught up in family life, and he's just been, doing his thing. But, I said, hey, what's it going to take for you to come, do this comic with me? And, we came to, loose agreement to try to get it done, and we're working on it, and I'm excited about that because I think Mikey's talents are perfect for the comic book format, graphic novel style. And for what we have planned, the Sagaverse campaign guide is our next big project that will be launching this fall. And, the comic book series will kind of parallel with that to tell stories in that universe. So
excellent. Yeah, that's a big handful, isn't it?
Yes, it's a lot. I have 12 people working for me now, so I have my full-time job, and then after I'm done with that, I'm like, talking with people all evening into the weekends. A lot of them are different time zones, so it works out great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's awesome. I never thought it would get this far, and even though we don't even have anything on the shelf yet, I know that everybody's kind of like, come on, Joe, you've been doing this for almost a year now. It's almost been 3 years, really, since I started on this, and I'm determined that it's going to finish. It's going to look great, and then not only that, we're going to have all of our systems in place for creating content much faster going forward. So
tell me about if I said to you, what's the memorable part of the journey? Because it's all about the journey, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Obviously, eventually, you just getting funded and not getting funded must have been like, that's a memorable moment.
Oh man, that was crazy. The Kickstarter, the 30 days of the Kickstarter were insane. And you really have to be on top of that as hard as you can. I made a lot of mistakes. I was very lucky to actually just barely make the cut. That's why I'm so supportive of my backers, and I really want to do the best by them because, people coming as like the last minute. I'm like, come on, you got time. Come on. Like it was like that the last day to push it over the mark, and we barely made it. And it's just at the end of it, I was just like so exhausted. I was like, oh my god, now I got to go work on the book. It's now that it's official, we got to really hammer on it. And that just was like validation. Like people actually like this idea. Enough people that they would give us $10,000. And in retrospect, that probably was a bit too high of a price, but I had budgeted in the 3D printer, the other printer, and that was, $6,000 right there. So, and then plus I had to pay people. So the total cost on this project has probably been around $15,000 or $16,000 to get this done so far. And most of that's been out of pocket. So, because after Kickstarter takes their cut and everything goes out, it was like 8.5 or something like that we saw. So, it's probably been, at least 50-50 out of pocket and Kickstarter to build this. So I don't care. I really, the fact that, we got people working and giving people jobs, people are happy and thrilled to be working on this. It's like that is the dream to me. That is the dream to, bring people into doing this that have always been on the periphery and not able to get in because of big corporations and people having their specific things they want to do. I've worked with a lot of different artists over the years, and people would tell me, people claim to have all the, Disney, all these other companies, very talented artists who work for Marvel and things like that. They couldn't get work anymore. So, here we are.
Yeah. Have you got any homebrew mechanics, or is it all like 5e sort of things, what we used to?
Chupi is all standard mechanics, but the Sagaverse campaign guide has some custom mechanics. Some of it is completely original. A lot of it is like things that worked in older versions or other offshoots that is kind of just modified a little bit to fit. So what you're going to see is the Sagaverse campaign guide will have an unlimited scope of your imagination as far as what you can create for a character. If you wanted to have, cavemen versus Jedis with dinosaurs in the middle, you could do that. All the rules are there, and how this caveman is actually, a viable character versus this Jedi. So we have the scaling mechanics for that. And then the real cool part is that we add I'll say, I guess, vehicle combat in a way. I mean, 5e kind of loosely they have the siege weapons and stuff. Well, we take it up to several tiers. So you have your base person level, right? Human, character level. Then you have your, vehicle, ship, capital ship, planetary, and those are like kind of threat levels. So you got to think of it as like a wizard, even if he's 20th level, is a person. He may have powerful magic, etc. But is he going to be able to blow up a Star Destroyer? Probably not. Okay. Now, there are some cool mechanics in there where like a couple of wizards can work together and do a spell on that damage scale, which is cool. But in other words, you make it so 5e is like characters get so powerful you can't challenge them anymore. So you just scale things up a little bit. If you like, the way it works is certain things can't hurt certain things after a certain tier, like a man with a gun or a sword can't hurt a battleship. He just can't. He might be able to like damage like a Jeep or something like that, but once it scales up to the second level higher, there's not much you can do. You could pick up a rocket launcher, which does damage on that scale, but it doesn't scale back. Whereas if you're, in a battleship, you can't target a person with your giant 18-inch Yamato guns. You just can't do it. Now, you could shell the area as a special ability where they got to make a save or take damage, but you can't just target them with that cannon. So it's not like this gun that does damage, 3d6 damage on this scale can target this character and kill them in one hit. You don't have that danger. I mean, there's still danger from that, but it's a manageable mechanic in a form of a special ability. And the point of this being like you can have ultimate what ifs and who would win type encounters, where like you can have some like a kaiju stomping through a city, or at any tier, you can have it as stomping through a medieval town, stomping through a modern city, stomping through, a scientifically advanced world, and you have to deal with that. So it just opens up new kinds of mechanics, space combat, aerial combat, things like that. So it adds like almost like a Warhammer-ish kind of dimension to 5e. So
yeah, that sounds like you're gonna be busy for the next decade.
Yes, I mean it's really opening up a door where and this is the door that I want open, is where people can look at it and say, wow, this is a cool system. I want to write for it, and I'll say, cool. Get with me, because I think what's happening, like the OGL thing really taught me a lot. I mean, not that I didn't already know about corporate stuff, because I've been a corporate guy my whole life. I've worked for, and I work for Google now. So I'm like, it's the biggest corporation on the planet. But I just didn't, I don't see that going the right direction. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people have their opinions on it, and obviously I have mine. I love D&D. I don't want to see it go down. That's my major thing. I hate when people throw shade at it, but at the same point in time, I'm kind of like, okay, so a half elf you can't play, but you can play Bugs Bunny. Like this seems to me it's more of a bankruptcy of creativity than anything else, which is where if going under the OGL now that we're keeping it, if Bob off the street has a really cool idea for a book and sends it over to us, then go ahead, we'll help you put it out there. I want to build a way that we can put content out there that's people can do like what they've been doing, selling their own stuff and working with us if they want to work with us. If not, then just use the system. It's going to be out there as rules to play, and that's going to be that. I'm not going to lock anything up or do anything like that. It's all part of the open gaming system. I'm going to look at the ones Project Black Flag, the other ones. I know you've been into that a little more than I have. I haven't had much time yet, but I want to see how those work out. I'm in a couple of those Discord groups and maybe adapt how these rules can fit into those systems as well. So it's mostly like a rules stack, I guess you'd say. It is its own system. So
I think there's going to be a bit of a logjam of 5e systems because we already have what we play. Then there'll be, oh no, this new 5e's got a few differences. But Project Black Flag have the opportunity to take the best from all over. But instead, I just see it going, we're doing one D&D, we're just changing a few things. It's like, well, what's the point? Do vastly different or don't do it at all.
Yeah, that's to me, that's kind of like if you look at the editions throughout the years, it's been like some of them have been great. Like 4th edition was terrible, but 3.5 was great. It just got very cumbersome, whereas 5th edition is less cumbersome, but it also, to me, it just gets further from like the lore that made D&D so special. So it's like there's a lot of whitewashing of lore and all the monsters do all the same things. It's like it's kind of weak in that front, but the system is great. Advantage, disadvantage. I mean, it's probably one of the best systems that we've had. So less dice rolls, and still having enough strategic and tactical capability to have fun. Whereas I think that the older editions lacked a little bit of that, but were more open for imagination. So yeah, I mean, I like 5e. I see that as the one that got super popular. We have this whole new generation of people playing the game we never had before, and they're all 5e people. I don't know how they're going to do with 1D&D, but I mean, we'll adapt our system to that. But you're right. There's like, there's going to be 10,000 different versions of competitors out there now. So I mean, to me, it's not competition though. It's all for the love of the game. You put it out there. If it's good and people like it, then you keep doing it, right? So
yeah. And now I admit I'm a 5e baby, I'm fascinated about all you old schoolers who are like, yeah, we play 3rd edition, whatever. But OSE, when you brought it up, when I first met you, I'd never heard of it. Can you give me a quick rundown of what that system's like?
Well, it's the system that it's based off of, the basic AD&D rules going back to when we used to play. I think I got, so... We got the original old school, dirty old player's handbook here. The system is a lot more, it's hard. I mean, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a lot of math, a lot of charts. And this was great as a kid because I memorized these books and that made me smart or smarter anyway. But OSE is a modernized version of that has streamlined out a lot of the crazy stuff. Like THACO is something you always hear about. To hit armor class 0, it requires you to work your math in reverse, and some people just can't handle that. So, it modifies that to making it like a 5e AC. So it's like a higher it goes up, then the harder it is to hit. But it is a more scaled back version. You have less hit points, less things you can do combat-wise. It's more item focused. It's a lot simpler. It flows a lot faster. And it's a lot of fun. But again, you miss some of the tactical love that you'd get from having a big battle map with bonus actions and things you can do you don't get that. You get an attack or you cast a spell, and sometimes your spell doesn't even go off in one round, and you can die a lot easier. I can't tell you how many characters I've had die throughout the years playing old school and how many I've killed. Probably 10 times as many. But that was just part of the game, and it's a fantasy world. So, death isn't even permanent in a lot of situations. So your characters come back and you keep going. Whereas I see that as the big major difference. Also, when Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson created the early parts of it, and all the guys that worked with them, they very heavily focused on actual lore, like the book Deities and Demigods. When that first came out, it's like a taboo book now, but it had everything in there, and I learned so much about all different cultures and the pantheons of the gods and things like that. And the monsters are all based upon legends and lore. A lot of it was really had a lot of strong archetypical power behind it that's kind of diluted over the years. You get these old books that just have some writing in them, and there's a couple of black and white sketches, and it just sets your mind off thinking, and you read a couple of paragraphs and now all of a sudden you're wanting to learn about Thor and Lu and Kukul Khan and all these other cool characters. And they're like, the reason why the gods were the gods is because they embody archetypes, and archetypes are all about human expression. So it's very easy to get into that from a lore perspective if you're a nerd like me. So there's the attack.
Next year's DMG, the reworking, is meant to have more lore in it, but as far as I can see, 5e, the way they're doing it now, has lost so much lore material that it's all in the past. You've got to go looking for it.
Yeah, it's there. If you go online and look for it, they haven't like gotten rid of it. But it almost seems like we've told these stories before about these monsters. Now they're just these monsters or these characters in the world. So we're just going to represent them with the stats that need to be represented and give you the basics on how that works, as opposed to really giving you a cool backstory. Like D&D has its own mythology. The Forgotten Realms mythology and the history there is amazing. I mean, you could have an entire doctorate thesis on Forgotten Realms. It's amazing. Just the characters there, Drist, Elminster, you got all these different stories going all the way back, and all of that even is kind of like they get into that a little bit more, I think, in 5e in some ways, but you don't Storm King's Thunder is something I ran about 3 times, and that touches on so many places in the Sword Coast, but it gives you so little about each place that when you go and you dive into that, you can really flesh out that whole module to be a 2-year campaign if you wanted to. But yeah, you're right. It does kind of just, not that it doesn't work, but the art, even though it's colorful, it just seems like it's toned back to me. It's not quite as vibrant or as lore-wise or art-wise as the other editions.
Did you play Spelljammer originally?
A little bit. I didn't really like the whole pirate ship in space concept. I was like, if I'm going to be in space, give me a Veritech or the Enterprise or something like that. I don't want to be in a boat. So I didn't play it too much, a little bit. Because at the time, we also had Gamma World. We were playing that a little bit. And I think after that, we were playing a lot of Rifts. So a lot of our sci-fi stuff came in other systems. So, we were nerds in our friend's basement, locked in. So we played just about everything.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go with a stock question now that's become a bit of a staple. If you're going to create a monster right now, obviously you've had your hand in these monsters, but where does your mind go? What are the monsters that you like? You create a monster right now off the top of your head. Where are you going? I
always go for a challenge. I want a monster that's not going to be a pushover. I mean, I don't really ever. I have to catch myself on saying, not every monster you create is a BBEG. You have to make some monsters that are, regular. I like really creepy monsters. I like undead. So if I was to go create a monster right now, with my head being in Chubby for so long, we've made a lot of just crazy cool stuff. Extra like dinosaurs. There's a lot of new dinosaurs. There's a lot of some bats, a lot of new insects, a couple of types of new undead. Like Chuppy's got an whole new compendium at the back of it. You got the Crocotoans, the Cetarians. Those are 2 playable races. So I would have to say I tend to be more of towards the dark horror kind of monster than I would be the fairy dragon, fae type characters. Even though I like those characters too, and I have made plenty of those. I grew up with 80s schlock movies. So,
Yeah. So, right, this is a new staple question. You're the first one to be asked it. Okay. How the hell do you speed up 5e combat?
Oh, God.
Exactly.
Curveball. Let's see. How do you speed up 5e combat? Well, I speed it up by just kind of through my, I don't want to say like a leadership or something like that, but as a DM, you have to keep things moving. Yeah. Okay, so you got to let your players know ahead of time. Think about your turn. You have nothing to do but think about your next turn, and then be ready. Look at the combat situation and see what is going to happen, and give yourself a couple of different ideas. Well, if this happens and this happens, I'm going to do this, to avoid metagaming, talking to each other, coming up with a solid plan when characters are on different sides of the map. what I've done in a couple of different circumstances is go back to the 4th edition minion idea, whereas you have these things, yep, one hit death, it's out of the way, this way just there's the threat there, and cut back on the amount of resting, because when characters can get long rests, they can just keep alpha striking over and over again, and combat can drag out forever when everybody's got 8,000 things. When you kind of make them, if my group I play with on Mondays and Tuesdays, a lot of times we'll go ahead and fire off everything in one encounter and then not realize we're crawling through a dungeon and we're hosed. So, it's the same kind of thing I like to do when I'm DMing, is just, keep it so there's more time adventuring and less time, sitting there fumbling through the spells that you have and resetting everything. 99% of what I do playing wise these days is online on Roll20, and I have like 16,000 hours judging in there. So to me, I like fly through it. It's really easy to keep initiative and everything. So combat moves pretty fast. But tabletop wise, I mean, you gotta keep the tangents off the table. You got people focused. You got snacks going off. So yeah, I guess the biggest thing I would say is just keeping everybody focused on combat. I don't think there's a mechanical way to really improve 5e too much.
Yeah, I'm currently out of the DM role and I'm on the other side of the screen. And it's like, wow, combat is dull. I didn't realize, because as a DM, I'm like, it's your go, it's my go again. Oh, it's your go, it's my go again. I'm always on the go. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I'll keep asking people that. So time management for yourself on creating this project. How is it having a family and a job and,
It's, I got to say that is probably the biggest challenge of my life. I mean, my job has been like I worked through a vacation in December. It's very, very busy. I'm on the cloud security side of things. So, we're always dealing with something and always working to improve the world and keep everybody safe. So it's a full-time and a half job most of the time. And then I have, my wife is here with me at the house, and so are my kids. So the 4 of us are up each other's butts all the time, which can, be great, and also be, when you're trying to get a little bit of sane time to work on something, could be kind of a problem. So my days go like this. I roll out of bed, I start working. I'm working on my work stuff, and if I get, a couple of hours of downtime in the middle of the day between meetings, I might fire up something and edit a doc, or if an idea comes to my head, I'll write it down or type it out so I have it for later. And then I try to wrap up work by like 5, 6 o'clock usually, and then I'll work on Chupacabra for an hour or two and go make dinner, hang out with my family till they go to bed, and then it's right back at it. And I'll work on it till 8 or 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and then my wife will be done with doing what she's done with the kids and everything else, and we'll hang out and play Call of Duty for a bit and pass out. So it's pretty much a standard day in the life of Joe.
So at the current moment in this phase where you're pre-release, are you feeling accomplished? Are you feeling overwhelmed? What's the general sense?
A little bit of everything. I'm a little bit, I don't want to say overwhelmed. Whelmed, I guess, is the good term. I mean, there's a lot to do, and I'm excited about doing it. I feel like one pat of butter on a whole loaf of toast, spread out a lot, but things keep, everything's progressing. So that's good. I feel like I'm proud of my team because they've dealt with a lot of crap. I mean, personal stuff, things that come up, and we're all sticking through it. I mean, and just to be able to sit here and have an interview with you talking about this is like, awesome to me. So I'm so excited. I'm like a little kid, I want to finish this up. I want to hold the book, it's where I'm at. It's trepidation and hoping that, once it's out there, people are like, wow, this is cool. It's a lot to it. Yeah. It's an emotional smorgasbord.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all eager to get, deeper into it. And, you'll always be special to me, Joe, for being that first person to trust me. So thanks for that. And I can't wait for it to be out.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that. And likewise, let's grow together, man. I'm going to be starting to do, once I get a little bit more done, I'll start getting my social media presence up again, start doing some short TikToks and stuff like that. I'm happy to come back on and talk to you about anything, or, we can always talk about something else.
No, we'll get you back on at some point. Well, thanks for coming on, Joe. Thanks very much.
No, you're very welcome, Chris. Thank you. And I appreciate you and your viewers taking the time to watch this.